way back in Bible college days, when we first graduated from high school and went on into Bible college, I saw this lovely girl, and I asked her if we might have a date. And she said, sure. So we had a date together, and I really, really liked her very, very much. So I asked her for a second date, and she turned me down. And for the next 47 years, I didn't know why. I wish I knew why. I wish I knew what I did wrong or what I said wrong, but there was no explanation, just a gracious turning me down. So for 47 years, I didn't suffer with that, because 4 years later, I met a very lovely girl, and we became married eventually. And she became the mother of my 2 boys. And then it was a good 40 years later, she was diagnosed with cancer. And we struggled together for 8 years through the terrible ravages of breast cancer. And finally, she passed away. And I went into the pastorate, served in different parts of the country and in Canada. I received an invitation to hold a week of meetings in Ellisburg, New York. I'd never heard of Ellisburg, New York. So I got the map out and took a look at it and found out that to get there, you had to take some back roads, and you would go within 4 miles of where Colleen had lived when she was a student.
Oh, and Elaine, too.
And Elaine, they had lived across the street from each other, my first wife and now my second wife. And so I thought, isn't that interesting? I'll be going within 4 miles of Colleen John's home. Then I wrote a letter to her, told her when I'd be coming through within 4 miles of her home on the road in the next town, Glen Hope. She lived in Arvona. And I said, would it be possible for us to go out and have lunch together? And in fear and trembling, I mailed the letter off to her.
You thought you did.
I waited a week, no answer. And I called my son in South America. He was a missionary in South America. And I said, Brian, I just don't like this teenage stuff. And he said, oh, Dad, be patient. She was a missionary. She's retired. She may be speaking somewhere by invitation. And so I tried to be patient. Another week went by, no answer. And I called him again. I said, Brian, I just don't like this at all. He said, Dad, pick up the phone and call her. And I said, no way. She turned me down 47 years ago. I'm not about to put her under pressure to say yes now. And I didn't know what to make of the whole thing, and I wished I had never written to her. And then I got ready to go to church, and I picked up a Bible that I don't carry to church with me usually. And when I cracked it open, there was the letter. It had never been mailed. Now I knew why she hadn't answered me. So I picked up the phone and I called her and I said, Colleen, I wrote you a letter and you never answered me. She said, Charles Shepson. We hadn't talked for all those years. Charles Shepson, I never received any letter from you. And I laughed and I told her the story and we laughed together about it. And she said, oh, I'd be happy to. No reluctance whatsoever, which didn't give me a clue as to what the problem had been. So anyway, we had our second date 47 years after our first date and enjoyed it thoroughly.
I was a teacher. I taught young people and also men who were going into the ministry. I enjoyed it very much. I had a very exciting class of young people in Amman, Jordan. They were college and professional young people. They were sharp, and we had a good time together. And the others were older men, which was interesting because women don't teach men in the Middle East, but the Lord opened that door. The man in authority over me told me I had to teach these two men. One was already a pastor and one was wanting to be a pastor. And I said, well, I can't do that in this culture. He said, well, you have to. There's no one else to do it. So I was teaching these two men. And one day I said, I'm really uncomfortable teaching you because I know women don't teach men in your culture. And with one voice they said, oh, we don't think of you as a woman teaching us. The Holy Spirit is teaching us. Well, that made goosebumps come out all over me. And ever after that, I had really liberty with him. We had wonderful times.
We were out for dinner somewhere, and she said, you remember what happened 47 years ago? She said, I couldn't explain to you then why. Wouldn't have been very ladylike, but I can now. She said, I turned you down because I liked you. And she said, I was called to be a missionary. And you told me you were called to be a minister. And I didn't want anybody to come between me and God in what God had asked me to do. So I couldn't have a second date with you back then. But I'm retired now. And we picked up right where we left off. And 6 months later, we were married.
And it was just like we had met yesterday, after all those years. It just seems very natural to me.
Yeah. It was very special to me because though I was not called to be a missionary, I had a very strong missionary heart. And every church I ever pastored, the people had to put up with me. On Sunday morning, they always had a spotlight on missions, 10 minutes. And my heart was very strongly for missions, though I was called to be a pastor here in the United States. So it wasn't as if she had a missionary heart and I had a pastor's heart. No, that wasn't it at all. She loved teaching, the pastoral kind of things. I loved missionaries, and they just merged, and it was very natural.
I think our mutual love for the Lord and desire to live for Him.
That's primary.
Yes, and then we just fit together.
Yeah. And
we like the same things. We like the same kind of music, classical music.
Same music and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't have adjustments to make.
We didn't.
Yeah.
No.